South Africa is about to relearn a simple rule of global trade. You're free to make your own choices, but you're not free from the consequences of them. The reality is sitting inside a US trade deal called AGOA, and this week, things got interesting. So here's the simplest way to understand what AGOA actually is. Imagine you own a business and the biggest market in town says, hey, you're welcome to sell your products here. No extra fees, no barriers. As long as we're comfortable doing business with you. Now, you don't have to say yes, but the market's customer base is absolutely massive. That's AGOA in a nutshell, the African Growth and Opportunity Act that gives eligible African countries duty-free access to the US market for thousands of products, from cars and citrus to jewelry. Now, it's not aid and it's not unconditional either. The US keeps its right to review who qualifies for this agreement based on factors like politics and trade behavior. This week, the US House of Representatives approved a 3-year extension of AGOA, but South Africa's position here is specifically exposed. You see, as the bill heads to the Senate, some lawmakers have questioned whether South Africa's actions line up with its stated neutrality, pointing to examples like our recent naval exercises with Russia and Iran, two countries that the US sees as strategic rivals. Now, our government's response here, though, has been consistent. South Africa makes its own decisions and won't shape foreign relationships to please any one country. Now, that's a defensible stance, but like anything, it comes with practical trade-offs. In 2023, South Africa reportedly exported about 66 billion rand worth of goods to the US under AGOA. And so if we lose access to this trade deal as a result of those choices, tens of thousands of local jobs are at risk of disappearing overnight. And so the reality here is that trade-offs like this sit at the intersection of political independence and economic exposure. So while AGOA tests South Africa's choices abroad, a different kind of test is quietly gaining traction at home. Business leaders around the country are saying South Africa is entering a year with real economic momentum. And a lot of that optimism is being pinned on something that many people barely recognize by name: Operation Vulindlela. At its core, Operation Vulindlela is this joint unit between the Presidency and National Treasury that was set up in 2020 to unblock the systems that keep the economy stuck. It doesn't run departments or deliver services. Its role is practical: identify specific bottlenecks, set clear deadlines, track progress, and pressure departments to execute. Think of it less as policy making and more as project management inside government, making sure that plans don't just sit on paper. So far, its biggest focus has been electricity and logistics, areas where we've seen measurable progress. Now, though, it's shifting its attention to local governments, where failures in water, electricity distribution, and basic maintenance are undermining everything else. The immediate push here sounds simple, but it's crucial. Ensuring money collected for utilities is actually spent on those utilities. Treasury is backing this with a 54 billion rand incentive over 6 years, but only for metros willing to accept tighter controls and technical support. Whether municipalities cooperate will be the real test. So that's what's shifting in governments. But what's shifting in households is something more direct. If you're paying off a home, a car, or even just a credit card, what the Reserve Bank does next actually matters to you, because there's this growing expectation that interest rates in South Africa could keep edging lower this year. So at the center of this is the repo rate. That's the interest rate set by the South African Reserve Bank, and it's the rate at which banks like FNB or Capitec borrow money from it. And so when the repo rate goes up, borrowing becomes more expensive for banks, and so they pass that cost on to consumers in the form of higher lending rates. When it comes down, though, the opposite happens and borrowing gets cheaper. And so if the Reserve Bank cuts the repo rate, your standard bond repayment doesn't drop instantly, but it usually follows. Right now, inflation is easing, the rand has strengthened, and fuel price pressures are softer, all the things that give the Reserve Bank room to move. Markets are expecting at least one more rate cut this year, and if that happens, it won't feel dramatic, but over time, this means lower monthly repayments, a bit more breathing room for households, and slightly cheaper credit across the economy. And before we cruise on to our Bagel Bite of the day, here's a couple other headlines worth knowing. For starters, plans are underway for DA Federal Council Chair Helen Zille to join the Joburg City Council potentially as early as March, as she positions herself for a run for mayor in South Africa's economic hub. South Africa has been removed from the EU's list of high-risk jurisdictions following its exit from the FATF grey list, which eases compliance burdens for European banks and signals renewed confidence in the country's anti-money laundering reforms. And NASA is reportedly days away from a day zero water crisis, with its main dam critically low as experts point to climate-driven rainfall shifts compounded by aging infrastructure and long-standing governance failures. And on to our Bagel Bite of the day. But first, my friends, just a side note. If you are enjoying the show, please can I ask that you like and subscribe and share the video with your mates. It helps to keep the lights on. Now, with that out the way, let's see what you got. The question is, which country is home to the ancient terracotta army discovered in 1974? Is it A, China, B, Japan, or C, Turkey? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. Why do South African public schools enforce uniforms? If you've ever watched an American school movie, the contrast is jarring. No blazers, no school socks, just jeans, hoodies, and whatever passes the dress code. In South Africa, that kind of freedom almost feels foreign because here uniforms aren't optional, they're compulsory. So it's a legacy of the British education system built around discipline and the idea that dressing the same would level social differences. After apartheid, those principles were formally kept in place under the School Act, with the uniform still justified as promoting discipline and equality. But the problem, though, is that logic has now collided with reality. You see, this week, the Competition Commission has said that schools have had more than enough time to stop forcing parents to buy from single suppliers, a practice that has driven up prices and triggered hundreds of complaints. A basic school dress can now cost hundreds of rands. Add winter gear, sports kits, and special uniforms, and the bill escalates fast. And so as a result of all of this, the Department of Basic Education is now reviewing both cost caps and generic options, because for many families, uniforms have become one of the biggest barriers to education. And as for that Bagel Bite, the answer is China. The terracotta army was built over 2,000 years ago to guard the tomb of China's first emperor, an underground force meant to protect him and project his power in the afterlife. Each one of those life-size clay soldiers was individually crafted with unique faces, ranks, and weapons, reflecting the belief that hierarchy, status, and protection carried over into death. And my friends, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in until the very end. We hope you guys have a great day further. Be kind to one another, and we'll catch you all tomorrow for our final show of the work week. It's going to be a goodie. Take care. God bless.